All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order and open the floor to public comments. Don't see any of those, so let's move forward to the agenda items. We're gonna review and discuss these following items here. Number one, we're gonna get an update of our capital improvements list and timeline for completion. I see more red.
We have more red. So we had a lot of items completed during Christmas break. The one I'm most proud of is the PAC lighting. It is complete and doing training on that Monday for the staff. It really looks good. And then of course after that we'll do the flooring in there during the summer. Unless they can give us some time that we can work in there, which we're working on. So, any questions about any particular item? I will give you a little update on the HVAC for the gym. So we have our final drawings and the equipment has been ordered. We've got the pads located and we'll get those poured here pretty quick. As soon as those are poured, then we'll set the equipment and then we'll have Lockridge prefabricated ductwork. So I don't see any reason why we can't have these up and going in springtime.
So when we start warming up, getting like to 80, like when it's really hot.
Yeah.
Not January, but.
Well, you know, as warm as it was today, everyone I drove by had the garage doors up, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a little humid in there.
David, would you also talk about, we've got the baseball field lighting that's gonna come on the agenda, so we
Correct.
can go around that one.
I will. So the baseball field lighting, we got 2 quotes on that, and we're gonna go with Musco lighting, which is what we preferred, the manufacturer. RK Bass is gonna install that. So we were hoping that we could jump on that a little quick. Of course, we have to take that to the board, so with board approval on that, we'll go ahead and release that equipment and get that up and going. So it's gonna be new lighting. They're gonna mount the drivers for the LED like 12 feet off the ground so we can service those. Gets a new control panel box. I don't know if you've seen the old one, probably not, but it's old and leaning and just in bad shape, so.
Is that 173,000, or am I thinking of something?
No, it's,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but let me take a look.
I can't remember off the top of my head. It could have been. I got so many numbers running around my head.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jennifer's looking at it, and then Southwest Elementary School renovations inside.
Yes, so we taken some measurements, and actually I got a call from Vicki Dean that said the campus was clear, so they're gonna move their summer programs to Chisholm Trail. So, yeah, we're gonna go in there and renovate that wing. So basically, I don't know if you can visualize, but going down that old wing, you have that old ceramic tile base. It's all chipped off. They try to put cold base over the top of it. It's just a mess. So we're gonna go in and change all the door frames out and the doors, and we're going to laminate on that concrete block drywall, give it a good clean finish, and then new floor and a new base, new ceilings, new lights. It'll look totally different.
Good.
Yeah. So
And you're getting some estimates on the laminating?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And baseball lighting was 173,000.
He was correct.
And then, going back to Southwest, the plumbing, we had some issues again, and we're going
We
to.
have a contractor coming out on Friday. He was supposed to come out Thursday, but he's coming out.
Thank you, so I just wanna let y'all know it's not, we keep, David's group has continued to work, and we just can't get it, so we're outsourcing until we can get it.
And Tasby did come out and do the air quality check,
Yes.
and it is not mold or anything, they test clean, so
Yeah.
there's no,
Yeah.
It's just a septic smell that's coming back?
yeah, I'm not sure what
Yeah.
kind
A
of
lot,
smell it
it's-
is. It's some kind of smell, it's musty, you know, it's kind of
Well, Sam Rubin, who's our IPM guy, so he has a theory, and it may be something to it, but those rooms on that wing have carpet on the floor. I don't have to be one, but it's old carpet. They also have these little classroom rugs like we have in all of our elementary school.
Yeah.
Well, the cleaning crews shampoo those carpets on top of the carpet, and it dries on top of that carpet.
Mm.
So my thought is, there's a possibility that we've just got migration of water in that old original carpet. It's probably just gonna be pulled up and
Is that
replaced,
our only place that we have carpet in that building, is that one?
to my knowledge, yes. And it's the only school I know
Hmm.
of on the campus.
Well, it's just in one area, and you should get away from that area, you don't smell it as much, so, well, we'll see, we'll figure it out. And then, central office update on gym and security vestibule.
Okay, so we met last week, and so we got all the control access doors ordered. So that would be one down on the elevator lobby, preventing you from going downstairs. And then the one here by the reception desk. We'll go ahead and do the doors first. The millwork guy's been out, measured all this millwork. So we'll do a lot before spring break, but we'll actually do the millwork and the bulk of the work during spring break.
So, good. And then the only other question I had was, how are we moving on the old admin building on Sixth Street or the health sciences building? Are we, that's in the works, we're gonna move?
It is. Deanna came and talked with Dr. Muller and I last week, I guess. So she's been looking at it, so she wants to go back with cubicles instead of partition walls, which would
Jared
be.
was over there today, wasn't he? Wasn't that where Jared was?
Well, he was supposed to come in this afternoon, but he got hung up,
Oh, okay.
and so wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
But, yeah, he was gonna take a look at the gym, and also Sixth Street.
And then well, I guess we'll discuss it. Let's see. I looked at it earlier. I guess that, the gym, can we talk about that during this section?
Yeah.
The old gym tear, I'd like to go over there and take a look at it before we really move any, making a motion to spending $1 million on that deal. You know, when that first got brought up a couple of years ago, when we first got on the board, I wasn't real pumped about that project. When we started looking at the monies we had to spend, I thought there were other things that might have been more pressing at that time. Would it be okay if we went over and just kind of walked it and took a look at it and see?
Jared was gonna look at that too, that was another thing
Yeah,
that
so
was
he's
on
waiting
his
for him.
list,
He
so we'll.
should be here in 10
Yeah,
minutes.
we'll get you some more information on that one. My concern with the gym, cause I've been with you, but when I went over there and I heard that there was asbestos all over there, and I know we have people that are traipsing through there looking at furniture and other things, that causes me concern. So that kinda changed how I looked at that project. Now, what we've talked about doing is giving y'all some options from doing nothing to doing everything, and the things in between. Everything would be the gym is demoed, there obviously is an asbestos abatement that you've got, a paved parking with, you have the whole enchilada. The parts in between are that you can abate, I guess you could just abate.
Just a minute.
You could abate and you could demo, you could abate, demo, and do a gravel lot, or just leave it vacant, or you could do, again, the whole thing. So we're gonna bring you some options, and they'll be choose what you're gonna.
All right.
I think one of the open questions is there's 5 Head Start classrooms, right,
Yeah.
that we're currently using for new tech. And those may have to get demoed with the gym because of structural issues, but.
And that's on the south side?
Yes.
Yeah. Remember those, back when I used to coach over there, I remember those rooms.
Yeah, they're
Useful
nice.
rooms.
Yeah, they're nice,
They
yeah.
are, they're very nice. And the other one, Halo system, we have ordered, that's the vaping sensor system. It's ordered, but it's not in, correct?
For the high school and the
Yes,
nines.
yes.
So those will be here. And then the PO has been put in also for the wiring of those. So that's gonna be the pilot program, and we'll be good to go soon, hopefully on those.
What about the signage that we were gonna put up in the bathrooms? to go with it?
We talked about that, we met on that this morning. We'll have an upcoming that our vape focus group will meet here in a couple of weeks, and we'll make some final decisions on signage, and then go ahead and implement that on our current campuses this spring, and then roll it into Lake Belton in the fall. So we should have some, hopefully maybe by the time of the safety briefing in February, we may have some examples to show you all of what we're gonna put up. So.
All right, so moving forward, I guess we'll go to B, update on the developer land request.
Okay, which should be simple as not. Let me talk to land swap, because actually that's the one that I'm most comfortable with right now. How this is, giving you a little history without belaboring the point, is when we first started this, obviously we cannot get an appraised value on it because it's undeveloped land at this point in time. So then I called Terry Covington and we didn't make an appointment with other things interceded in there to try to get a market value. And Terry had told me on the phone, she said, I don't even know that I can give you really a market value on that because I don't have any comparable properties per se. Then as it rolled beyond that, we had heard that law is if it exceeds, and I'm gonna be wrong on my figures, is it 0.1 of
1%.
1%.
of your appraised value, that you have to go through a more laborious process. And so Jennifer, bless her, and Angela worked on determining whether or not, in their estimation, based upon our other properties, if it would exceed that, and it did not. It did not. So we don't have to meet that standard. The amount of land changed when the boundaries were, I can't say redrawn, when we determined what the boundaries were. As you know, that there were several sets of those boundaries. Chuck Ligo and them got involved, they found the original deeds, and so we know that we have the property boundaries at this point in time. The amount of land that that the developer has asked to be traded is the same amount of land. Values we don't really need to look at this point in time, so it's a matter of 9-point-something acres versus 9-point-something acres, so it's the same amount of property. As far as what that property is zoned for, or purposed for at this point in time, we would be gaining more homesteads, Temple would be gaining more business sites, because there's pre-zoned business. So they would be giving up some of the home zones, and we'd be giving up some of the business zones, and these are strip shop zones, these aren't industrial. So that's kind of the summary of that.
I'm sorry, I just have
yeah.
one question.
No,
You said
please.
9-point-something
Yes.
acres? Okay, this is
Changed.
the 9 acres.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Just wanna make sure I have that right.
9.63, I think. And that changed whenever those lines changed. For me, as far as egress onto properties, it doesn't make any difference. There's nothing around there. We don't have anything there. It's just a matter of trading it off. I don't have any trouble with that one at this point in time.
How does is it in here, we can see it?
It was in your old packet.
Yeah, it was in the
Printed
last
it
one.
again.
No, that's fine, that's fine. But it doesn't affect, obviously, since it's a swap,
Mhm.
it doesn't affect the usefulness, it doesn't affect our footprint.
No, we have no footprint there.
So the only argument could be made, that has been made, is that if we're giving up, commercial is worth more than residential, and if we're giving up commercial for residential, it's not an even swap. I'm not saying that's my argument, that's the argument that's been made.
Understood. Well, I guess you could say that, but there's no value assigned to either of the properties right now, so we can't even say for a fact that those two values will be different.
Okay.
For me, that's not an argument at this point in time, because there are no assigned values, and there's not going to be an assigned value to those, because nobody wants to or can do that.
Okay.
So then you really get down into acreage. The other is hypothetical. I mean, what those values might be as far as residential versus a commercial, and it is hypothetical at this point.
Right.
There are some commercial properties that are not valued very high,
Right.
depending on what's on them. There's some residential properties that are valued extremely high, so it just depends on what those particular properties are.
Okay.
Tell me if I'm saying anything that you would disagree.
No, I just think we need to be on the same page on that one in case it gets
I
questioned,
agree.
that, hey, you
Something-
switched.
Something that got thrown around was some formula about when you're swapping, you have to do 3 for 1, or some, I don't even know what was.
No.
There was some, but there's too much vagueness to this to even really hit the target on.
As far, again, value is something that I would never place a value on either of the pieces. I don't think Jennifer would either, as far as officially, and our realtors won't. So that's not gonna happen, Belcat's not going to. So all you've got factually is the amount of acreage for the two properties, and those are about the same. So I would suggest to you that y'all move ahead with that piece, because I just don't see any reason to not at this point in time. My only reservation actually was it's kind of a ziggy line in there, but if you look at the rest of our property boundaries, they're all ziggy lines too, so I don't know that's any different than.
And this gets kids where it makes sense for them to go to school with their
That's
neighborhood.
correct, that's
Right,
correct.
keeps the neighborhood together.
It keeps it intact,
Which ultimately, in the long run, is still the only important
the right
thing we
number,
should be
yes.
focused on, not values, it's what's best for those kids in that neighborhood.
And for Temple ISD, because it's such an outlier, they would have to send a bus way out there to that neighborhood, because they don't have developments between that one and where
I remember,
Kennedy Powell
like,
is.
isn't it 4 miles or something like that to the
Yeah.
nearest school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, they can do that, but it really does isolate a group of kids from their
Right.
neighborhood.
And that was one of the things we really considered in the last rezoning, was how much time kids are spending on buses.
Absolutely, and that they are with their peers, that was a huge part in
Yes.
what Mike did.
Yeah. So this stays with that theme.
Yeah, it does.
When we redid everything, that stays with our theme to me. It makes more sense.
Yeah, we really try to keep peer groups together in the certain of them.
So do we wanna put this one on Mondays?
If that's okay with you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's time.
That's time.
Me kicking around for a little while, I think it's time.
Yeah, I think we've done due diligence on it.
It'll- It'll get trolled again online for a little bit, and then it'll be done.
Yeah, yeah.
I just, the trolling that came to me, my last thing was always, this is what's best for those kids.
Yep.
It really is. I mean, you're right, everything else aside, you know, I think if I were a family in a neighborhood and everybody else went to one school or school district, it doesn't even matter the district or one school, and my kids went to another, that would be hard. And we really try to keep neighborhoods intact with NBSD, and Temple does the same.
And I would, you know, just as a parent, I would think, the people over there would think, this is crazy. What- They would think it's nutty that this one little section doesn't.
Okay, the other piece of this one was the 0.9 acres request. And, this one has gone a little dicier for all of us. Robert, I'm gonna begin with you and let you kind of brief them on footprints and things.
Okay. Well, if you think about the Northgate property and you think of it in terms of, let's say that that's gonna be elementary number 12. Well, if elementary number 12 is the footprint of Charter Oak, then you're using a prototype design. And the advantage of using a prototype design is you get kind of a discount on your A&E fees. Somewhere in the range of 1 to 2%. It can be as high as 2%. So you get that discount. If you try to put Charter Oak on the site, absent that 0.9 acres, you don't have enough playground space. So that kind of then forces you into somewhat of a two-story arrangement. Now, what that looks like, you know, you could have a couple of wings that you make two-story, you could have the whole thing be two, you know, various iterations. But you will have some A&E redesign fees associated with that. And at that point, you're not using a prototype design, so you lose the discount of the 1 to 2%. So, at the same time, a two-story building uses less concrete for the foundation, uses less roof for the roof, so you kind of have that mix in there. So I think at the end of the day, it's probably about a $200,000 cost, but it's not really a cost, it's more of a, you've avoided the discount that you get from a prototype design. So, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of the,
And I'll put one more layer on that one. My bottom line with this one is I'm not ready to move forward with it, so this is discussion only today. But the other piece of that is, you know that you're gonna probably be building a couple of elementary schools within the next 5 to 10 years. And whether that's a replacement of Southwest and Miller, or whether it's a new elementary school. If you go to the two-story footprint and you talk about redundancy, which you try to do to get that 1 to 2% discount, you may still use that two-story design down the pike. So, you know, I doubt that you're going to be building, and I don't know how many schools you have with the Charter Oak footprint right now, but
4.
4. You know, most districts will do 5 to 7 that are within one footprint, and then they change to another footprint clean, everything. So, you know, you can use that one again too. So it's really, you know, kind of what you want to do on that one.
But if we were to sell that 0.963 acres, that's gonna mean that we won't be able to use that same elementary school footprint, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
It eliminates that, we're gonna.
right.
And Jared,
Hey, Jared.
that's who we need. Come on in. It is
Right on
your
cue.
time to shine,
Awesome,
sir.
exactly.
Well, I got a partner with me
Oh,
here.
good.
So
Okay.
Hi.
this is Meg from our
Hi.
office.
You know what, let me move over there, I'll move over
Well, it's
there.
fine. We can
No,
all
no, no, you two can sit here.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Sorry about
you.
running late.
Thornton Elementary in Temple is, the new one is 2 stories, right? And they're beautiful.
Which is the one that's right next to TBC?
Really, really beautiful 2 schools.
Is that Thornton?
Yes,
That was a redesign, right?
the total.
Did they tear it completely down?
Totally down,
Okay.
yes.
Cause the cost of the redesign
More.
was, it wasn't that much more than redoing the campus, redoing the campus, it was so old. And that's what you're gonna get with Southwest and Miller Heights.
Right.
You know, you can renovate them, but the cost to renovate, cause you've got those really low ceilings, you've got all your technology
Yeah.
wires that lay on the ceilings, and the cost of reno is almost the same as building new.
Right.
So, and you know you're gonna have a Southwest and Miller Heights somewhere in the mix pretty soon, within the next 5 to 6 years. So the discussion was the 0.9 acres for footprint, and we'd like to hear from you. Let me tell you what the discussion has been, and then please feed that, however, whatever y'all have discovered. Is, what I've been told so far is the selling off of that 0.9 acres would, not allow us to put the type of playground or put a playground in that we would have at Charter Oak. The Charter Oak footprint was put onto that Northgate site, and that little jut out in there was part of the playground.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then in your email, it also put that there would be a $200,000 change, and we didn't know if that was to the good or to the bad. So now I feed it to you, and just tell us what you see, and then we'll talk.
Has everybody seen the diagram and do we wanna show it or don't worry about it? So,
They've seen it, I
Okay,
don't have it
okay.
in the packet now, we've seen it.
so, you know, generally we talk about 15 acres is the kind of ideal school site, and that's in essence to fit everything that goes on there. And I think if you think about Charter Oak, in particular, as you go up, you have the detention pond, you have the bus loop on one side, the parent loop in the front, detention pond at the back, you have the main school, and then the playfields. So, I mean, that's the more kind of rectangular to almost square, the better off that you'll be. When you lay that one on the site, as you look at it right now, I have the one question that comes up is where's the front door to the site, from that side? I kind of placed it to, is that Pea Ridge Road that was kind of on the west from the flag lot? And so we'll have to have discussions about, do you actually come in through that flag, or do you come off that new road from the beginning? But in essence, that's kind of the front door of the school, and the school kind of looks to the southwest. We'd look for the same strategies, that in essence, that's the public side, and then basically the back side is the secure, safe side for the kids on that side, trying to minimize the amount of road impact from there. To that play area is right now is if you cut off that 0.9 acres and make it flat, you're gonna lose the play field area, or the amount of play field area that would be available to that side, from the physically in there. Of course, you could make it long and narrow and just have it wouldn't necessarily represent, the current goal isn't to necessarily represent I'll say a FIFA soccer field or regulation football field. It's already a reduced one, but it would be even further reduced from there. And then Charter Oak had 3 playgrounds. So in essence, you're just gonna fill every kind of square foot within that. The savings would be to the good if you went to a 2-story scheme, because fundamentally you're reducing the amount of foundation and the amount of roof on the project. Because in essence, you're taking 2 parts, you're putting one on top of the other. So what was the roof now becomes the floor, and now you gain the floor from that standpoint. Because ultimately what we would need is to add additional area if that goes away, to provide space for the playgrounds and playfields is fundamentally the challenge of that site from there.
All right, that's what we learned.
So I know that in our junior highs, North Belton, I don't remember the other one.
South Belton.
Is it South Belton?
They're 2-story.
Right, that have the 2-story design. We've, to my knowledge, well, Southwest Elementary has that weird, whatever it is, but none of our new elementary schools, is there a reason elementary schools avoid a 2-story footprint?
I would say generally what I hear from administrators is that they want every school to be 1-story, because then everybody's generally on one level. At a certain time frame, it's just not feasible to do that.
Okay.
Like high schools, that kind of thing. For elementary school in particular, you almost always see that the lower grades are on the lower floor, and it's only maybe 4 or 5, maybe 3, 4, 5 that go up to
I
the
think there's
second
actually
floor.
a law, a fire code
There
law.
is, but it's like kindergarten and first only. Everybody else could be on the upper floors from that, but yes, that is a concern of not physically being able to evacuate the building. So part of the discussion, as we move forward, if you kept the one story as it is and is designed now, the norm would be is that you would get a discount on architectural services or design services because we would basically be duplicating the prototype. We'd change the brick on the outside, redesign the front entry, but fundamentally it's the same thing. So there's a savings there that the district, we were talking 1 to 2% of the design fees, somewhere in the $300,000 to $600,000 range, that, just on keeping the exact same footprint and layout and moving that forward. If you go to a two-story scheme, one of the challenges becomes is what grades go up and where do they live from that standpoint, and how does that kind of modify the floor plan? But you'd have to add a minimum 2 stairs and an elevator. So that's where you'd probably realize $400,000 in foundation and roof, but then you're adding $200,000 of stairs and elevator to that cost. And we would wanna make sure then that those floors are well linked, so they don't feel like the lost stepchildren upstairs from a location standpoint.
We went to them in Temple because it fit our land better and allowed us to have more playground space.
Right.
We went to shared playgrounds with the city in many situations, and, you can talk with those principals, but I think principals think they're fine.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And I for one, I feel like it's time for a little change on our elementary design. They're beautiful, but it's like, it's just time. I feel like it's time to move to something new,
So Jared, on the High Point design, or the Charter Oak design that the last 4 we've done, is there a way to keep a majority of that design and flip one of those wings over on top of the other to create a 2-story, or would we just start over again on a new 2-story?
I would probably say it's probably better to start over. You're gonna kinda get this, it's gonna feel a little weird on the inside because you'd move 4 or 5 probably over 3, 4, 5, but then you have this little wing that has no classrooms on the end. It suddenly stops making sense from
So
a
it was-
layout.
We couldn't save anything by doing that, just start over.
And then the discussion I had with Dr. Muller is if you invest in that new prototype, a new model, then you can repeat that one, you get the same discount, or you have the choice of 1-story, 2-story along the way.
So, but talking about the 2-story thing, we discussed when we were visiting Southwest one day, we walked up on the hill and saw that there is a lot of land up there. I don't know exactly how much it is, but have y'all asked them to take a look to see? Cause that may be where,
I don't think so.
that may be where the next spot's gonna be anyways in the progression of things. Southwest Elementary.
This 2-story, for us, it made it easier if you're building on a site that has an existing school, just because it does have a smaller footprint. So, because we had schools that we were not gonna move those kids into other campuses, and so we continued to use part of those buildings with a bunch of portable buildings and built on those sites. So, it was just a expediency factor. And then the other thing that we considered is we were trying to get those enrollments up about 800, which a lot of the Belton schools are near that 800 mark. And when you go to an 800 footprint with a single floor, you have a pretty massive elementary school. And so going up allowed us to have less space to control for a very, very large campus. So what I want you to do is on that one, we're not ready to bring it forth. I think this is a time to think on this one about what you want to see, and this kind of fits into that strategic planning. What do you want to see long-term for the school district? It fits into that. And the developer can wait until we have a comfort with it. I think we did that with the other properties. There was a comfort, we'd done all of our homework, and so, again, I'm not ready to bring forth a recommendation from the administration on this one.
If it would be helpful, we can we have several 2-story, we have a lot of districts that we can put a 2-story version on there. We just knew that there was a strong history of the Charter Oak footprint, so we moved that one forward. We can always show a 2-story.
Could you do this too, based upon what Ty said? Could you go by and look at Southwest Elementary School, and if we did a rebuild on site at Southwest, could we retain some of that building open and operating while that 2-story went in, probably on the south side?
South side, back in that south, east corner, back in there.
Back
You
towards
go
the
weird
neighborhood.
Yeah.
topography in there.
How much land do you think they have there?
15, it's a big,
Is it a big piece of
pretty
land?
big.
Yeah, it's a good size.
Yeah.
Trouble is it goes like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a great,
Yeah, so you're gonna have some gradation issues.
Okay.
That'd be nice though to know that. Now Miller Heights, I think is a pretty easy, it's flat. But you know, the thing with Southwest and Miller Heights, again, I'm eking into the strategic plan is you've got neighborhoods that really need those campuses in those neighborhoods. That you really do. You've got children and parents that to walk to school is really what needs to happen in those neighborhoods. So, you know, I would suggest to you for the future that y'all retain those presences.
Right. Well, those are our growth areas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not gonna stop.
Yeah.
Southwest is never gonna stop.
No, it needs a campus there. So needs to.
I agree.
All right, that takes care of that one.
All right, we're moving.
You wanna go back to, since he's here, about the gym?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Did you get to go by and look at the gym and that?
I did not today, that's why I was looking to see if I had photos of it that I could pull up.
I think we'd like to take a tour. It's been a long time since I've been in that gym, just kind of go take a look. Yeah,
You want us to put that on the next agenda?
please.
So I think the concern, I don't know how much you
I
indicated.
kinda indicated that there might be structural issues with those 5 or 6 Head Start classrooms.
So I saw that in the packet, that's the thought, to try to preserve those 5 rooms in the demo, if that's where we're heading.
So the original discussion was, Head Start was currently located there, and there was a kitchen there, and we had then the district storage, and then there's the little connecting corridor in the back that is kind of used as general storage, I'll call it, and then there are all the locker rooms, everything. At the time, and I'm not sure how serious it actually got, but it got serious enough that Head Start was relocated as part of that effort, and that entire facility was vacated with the goal of demolishing it, putting it in a parking lot, and ultimately making that side an entrance for HR and those kind of things, creating the secure entry vestibule to support administration was kind of the long-term vision. We had put it into the capital improvement project list, and then it kind of just sat there at that point. It got real serious because we almost pulled the trigger on it for one summer. I don't think we ever looked at keeping just the classrooms and removing the gym. I do know that that's a shared wall between the two. So part of my question as I was going back and looking is, okay, if it's structurally feasible, you're gonna open up, you're gonna create a new exterior wall. So we'll have to insulate that, wrap that, so there'll be costs associated with that, so be it. But what do you wanna do with the rest of the land? Is it parking lot, is it replacement building, or is it just raw earth? Those kind of things, what's the goal?
Yeah, I think that's the question, because they need to decide what you want to put on that exterior wall. And I've looked around a little bit, I really don't think there's a foundation there at that separation. So you'd have to go in there for a foundation of some sort, build a wall.
Which is all the more challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And I think originally when it was presented to us, when I first got on the board, it was gonna be for a parking lot. And to change the direction and the public access to the admin building, that's the way it was presented.
Correct.
But then it was $1 million price tag, and at that time, we were waiting on House Bill 3 coming up, or whatever, we didn't know was gonna happen. And we pretty much put all of our capital improvements on the shelf for quite a while, just kinda waiting. So, it seemed like a lot of money at the time for a parking lot. What, are we gonna get like 75 spots out of it?
I think so.
And as far as parking back there, I think we can rework what we've got. We've talked about this on the north side of Bex and accommodate the request for more parking and better flow lanes for the buses. So I don't think this is gonna be needed for Bex anymore, which there was a discussion about that at some point in time. As far as using the old gym right now, I'd be very hesitant to use it for storage, which is what it's being used for, just because of asbestos in it. I would really worry about people working in there. So whether or not you leave it, again, even if you leave it, I wouldn't recommend that you have people come in and out of that building. You can leave it to a period of time where you feel comfortable about putting some money into it, but you're gonna have to address it at some point in time. I think the only way you're gonna be able to address it is take it down. I don't think there's anything else to do with it.
Yeah, and very few people drive on the north side, but the north side of that building, you've got a lot of roof damage,
Yeah.
soffit knee damage. If you're the public, you drive by, it's the admin building, it's just really doesn't seem right.
You know, on Fourth Street?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does look bad.
That little section is all been abandoned.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd renovate it, you talk about a cost, it'd be a huge cost to renovate that building, I just don't think it's worth it. Okay.
All right, so we can move on to Belton First Baptist Church request for an easement.
Yes, this is by the Ag Barn, and we've given you the papers that we received related to it. There's a lot of just kind of verbiage at the beginning, and honestly, we have not done anything else with this, and we'll tell you why in just a second. There are some drawings on page 19, and I know we've got a trip out there this afternoon, so if some of you want to look at it. But from what I've been told, and I have not walked it, is that it's like on the edge of a cliff right there, so we're gonna be limited on how much walking you can do, at least on that immediate area. But the easement is for a sewerage line. The city apparently has approved that going through there. They haven't given approval for our land, but as far as running it in that area, they've given approval for that. This is for their new building over there on the loop. And what I wanted from you today was I wanted to get a list of questions that you might have, and then we can go out and find answers. They're not near ready to build, so I don't feel under the gun to come up with an answer quickly on this one. I think it's something to study carefully. So really all I need from you today is I just need your questions, and then we will try to find answers. And we thought of a few questions of our own, but we didn't want to go with ours, and then y'all may have some more. So we'll go and visit with Terry Covington, who I think is representing the church. We'll go to the city and talk with them. We have a meeting with them Thursday or tomorrow anyway. So.
Based on those maps, I was looking today on my little computer that y'all give me, and I was trying to wrap my brain around where that easement was, the utility easement was gonna be. So now you're saying that off of Second Street where the Ag Barn is, that our land goes back,
Yes.
I guess, to the north.
Goes to the north.
Yeah.
So the easement they're requesting, I can tell you, so our property line on the, and you got a copy of it.
On the east side?
It's, the survey, which is here. So,
Yeah, I was looking at that.
so
trying to-
this is the, power station here, this is the little church, Second Avenue. So this is our property line, and it states on here, our property line is actually the center of Yellow Creek.
Yeah,
So this area from about here where they wanna run this easement, I mean, it's a sheer drop off. So they wanna be on our side of the center line of the creek, which wouldn't affect us any, we'd never build anything down there anyway.
yeah.
So we actually constructed a hurricane fence right back in here years ago, because we didn't want students getting on the edge of that and deciding let's climb down. So, that's where it is.
So when we're out there in a little bit, we
Yeah, we
can
can
look
look at it.
back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
Just as a piece of information, the property adjoining this easement request that says Shine Branch at the top, that is our property where we live.
Well, you're on the backside?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they need to
Good to
go
know.
across your property too.
They would have to go across our property, and we have been asked about that, and we are on hold for that.
So isn't there a homeowner's easement back there on the,
We're not in the subdivision.
oh, okay.
We have our own property here, that the frontage is Loop 121.
Okay. Because I know to the north of our property, there's, on the survey, it shows an easement, doesn't really give dimensions, it just says homeowner's easement, which I'm sure can be used for any utility.
I'd just like to go walk it today, and maybe then I can.
You really can't walk much of it, but you can see it.
It's a
But
road,
walking it is a
it's very
different.
wooded.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can see it, and actually the way the creek runs, I think that'll show it.
Yeah.
Actually, there's parts of it where our property actually extends to the other side of that creek
Correct.
and runs, we can't do anything with it, it's
Yeah.
nothing we can do.
So, like, I run that 2 or 3 days a week. I go down to MLK and get to 121, turn back around and go over the bridge. So when I'm going over the bridge on the south side of MLK, our property's right there. We have property that goes all the way to the creek.
You'll see it today.
Okay. I know there's just land down there, so
Yeah.
I know, okay, I kind of started to kind of get an image.
And all of these Loop 121, they all back up to that creek.
Gotcha.
And, you know, we were talking earlier, and it had nothing to do with this request about future building sites, you know, for the ISD. And obviously Second Street was one of the properties, and Angela and I visited you all.
I told you, you could never build a
No.
school, every line of business.
You know, you got utility lines, you got
Yeah,
little
you got
station.
that big
Sure.
utility. The only place you could build anything would be here on the west side of the utility easement, and
Yep, you could build small barns, that's what you
yeah,
could.
it's not very much.
But wasn't that originally purchased to try to build a school there?
So we have a diagram that was shown during the planning phase of selecting the Charter Oak site that
That's right,
shows.
and y'all said no, didn't
We
you?
said, no, it's feasible, but it was not cost effective, because I don't think there are utilities to the property yet to
Right,
support it.
From what I remember,
Not quite
the
access.
city, this is just what I remember hearing, this was pre me being around, was that it was gonna cost a lot of money for those utilities, and that the school would have to incur some of those costs.
That's correct.
And it wasn't financially as sound as going to another site.
Correct.
And the road, the road won't work either, and the city
Yeah,
is.
getting buses in there was gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
And-
So we basically, where you come in for the ag barn, I believe that was gonna be for the buses. They're gonna be in essence a lower parking lot and accessing the
You'll see.
other line.
How many acres do we own there?
28 and some change.
Yeah, you'll see it kind of wraps itself back around, they talk about there's a church back in there, there's just big utilities, you'll see it, and so, I mean, it's good for what it's for,
Yeah.
for what it's used for right now, it's perfect. Anything else, I don't know what else you could do with the land, it's slopes, there's a septic system out there,
It's a great agricultural site.
that's what it is.
There you go. Any other questions on that one? I think we can just keep moving.
Yeah, I've got one question. Now, property that we can build on, I know we've got the property off of Shanklin, and we've got the North Gate, and we've got the second, we've already talked about the Second Street property. Is there another piece?
436.
Okay, so those are the four.
Which one?
436 out, going toward Academy.
Oh, that's right,
Oh, okay.
that's right.
Okay.
Where is that located?
You know, Holland Road, and
Is it pre-Atmore, past Atmore, out there, kinda where his house is?
we know where they're putting the subdivision in?
Mm-hmm.
It's just on this side of the subdivision.
Gotcha, okay.
Is that the one that's set
Hubbard.
off from the road?
Hubbard Branch.
Yeah, yeah.
How many acres do we have out there, Dave?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember. It's enough for a school though.
What I'll do is I'll pull together, we did a presentation on all the open sites. I think Shanklin may or may not be included in there. That would be the one that wasn't, that
And
shows
a
all the
big
sites.
piece. That's
We have
right.
109 acres there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we did some looks. So I'll pull those together and I'll share them with Dr. Muller.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of see all of them.
Yeah, you could do a high school and a super Walmart out there.
Yeah, we're probably gonna need one. Yeah. All right, so, elementary attendance boundaries.
And we visited this, I think, 2 meetings ago, and we've been working on it since then. And just like with the secondary attendance boundaries, transfer policies, all those things, what I'm coming to the determination is we can manage, we feel like we're gonna be able to manage a lot of this through how we approach and our strategies that we use with elementary transfers, much the same way as we do with our middle schools. And what we found, and I'm gonna have some more data, and I hope we can come back to this at the next meeting, because what happens at semester is we lose kids, we gain kids. We're still doing leveling, where kids are coming in and we're under in some schools and over in some schools, and we're leveling. And what we're finding is, when we look at transfers, where we're at or near capacity, we also, those are the same schools that we have a large number of transfer students into historically, and about 50% of those have been either returning students or parent choice transfers from the past.
Sparta.
So we have some tools that the policy committee and the policy y'all passed back in October on FDA and FDB gives us the option of closing campuses now for
Yeah, I addressed
out-of-district
that.
transfers and intra-district transfers. So what we're trying to do is take this enrollment data that is just happening with the new semester, move-ins, move-outs, and come up with an analysis of our intra-district transfers, our out-of-district transfers, how many of those are employee transfers, how many of those have basically been transfers of choice historically, and kind of develop some numbers to crunch And then the second part of that study is looking at the facilities we currently have, how many classrooms are we not currently utilizing? So Tarver's one of our high impact areas. We're having to, as far as class sizes and things that they led in waivers, and they led also in the overcrowding transfers that we had to ask for. But we also have some room at Tarver to resituate some things and maybe increase that a little bit as far as how many kids we can actually have there. We based our 2019 staffs off of our demographers information. So once school started and then all these kids start showing up from the neighborhoods, we built our staff based off what our demographers said, so we may not be fully utilizing some of our facilities too. So we're gonna have an analytical, data-based approach that we think we can manage a lot of this with transfer policy and transfer decisions before we get to the point of moving neighborhoods. I guess that's what I want to get to.
We're gonna buy some time, basically.
We're gonna buy some time, and we have not applied for, we have not had the application period for elementary transfers yet. And much as we did with the high school and middle schools, when we get to that point, we want to be very transparent and very clear to the community and to our parents about here's what we're gonna need to do, here's what's sustainable, and we may not have as much of a generous transfer policy with the elementary levels as we've had in the past. And there's several considerations to that. One is capacity, one is facilities, and the third is now that we have secondary schools, and there definitely is a line drawn, that you get transfer kids going back and forth across secondary lines, and that's really not healthy because you create all those peer group issues at that point as well. So I would ask that you give us another month or so, and we'll come back with some more concrete numbers and data. And we may look at it and we may say, there's no way around it. We're gonna have to move some of these kids because we just can't meet the needs, the rate of growth. But we may also say, we anticipate we may be able to cut out 45 or 50 transfer students out of this school by closing the campus. And we move some kids, go on up to 6th grade, and others we just may be a little more strict on who we allow to transfer, and we can buy some time without having to do some major facility adjustments or moving neighborhoods to new attendance boundaries.
So that's the north side. And then we've got the south side.
Yes.
And the south side is Chisholm Trail, point blank.
Chisholm.
Yeah, it's Chisholm Trail. That's a different animal at Chisholm Trail.
It's a different animal. And so we need to approach those as two separate conversations. We think, and Mike will let you know in February, that we can shift around that north side and be fine, as you said, by time, Jim. At Chisholm Trail, we had a discussion about moving kids to accommodate that too, but what happens is you start really changing your zones. And you just went through rezoning. I hate to see you go through a whole nother rezoning, and I don't think that you want to either.
So Chisholm gets all of Three Creeks and then that one that's just right behind it, and that thing's
Correct.
popping right
It's
now.
And 190.
And,
And
yep,
190.
way down 190.
So at Chisholm Trail, y'all need to give us a little guidance on where you want to head with that. And we're not in action mode at this point in time, we're in thinking mode. We'll probably be adding portable buildings there anyway next year. I don't think there's any way around it. I just don't see any way. They don't have 0 classrooms now. If they have any growth, then that's a portable. So that's number one. The second one is we can go ahead and start putting together some numbers with Jared on adding a wing on that building, and whether it's in a year or 2 years or 3 years, and that would be your call. Jennifer, we've talked about this a lot. We feel like we've got the funding that possibly out of your interest off of your current bond. You could build that wing. We have a fund balance to accommodate that too, so you could do it in any way that you want. So do you want us to do both of those options for you at this point in time? What do you want?
I would say we would definitely need to see the numbers.
You know, what's feasible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what I'd like to see is, how I love this thing right here, is how much is, if we added a wing at Chisholm, how much is that gonna cut into some of the other things that we could be doing district-wide? Kind of looking at the impact on our, a capital improvements list too.
Right now, I don't think it would cut into it at all.
Okay, good.
But we need to know on the wing, and I know you'd have to do your thing, what are we gonna accomplish with it? Are we buying ourselves, how much time, how many kids, what's that gonna do for us by adding the wing? I mean, we already know that at some point we're gonna have to add a wing there. In fact, to all of the new schools at some point, it will be cost efficient to add a wing to them before we start building brand new schools, but that's
You know,
still,
and I wouldn't suggest a baby wing, you know, that has 6 classrooms
Right.
or 4 classrooms, that's just ridiculous, baby wing.
but you're also gonna be limited by the footprint of the land, what we can actually do there.
So part of what we talked about this morning is the baby wing, the 6th classroom is, I'm really round numbers, when I verify, is you're talking about $2.5 million of project costs. To build the facility, outfit it with furniture,
Right.
design, go through all
And
those
that's
steps.
6.
And that's 6, and that would be in one pocket. And so the question would be is where does that go? You know, does it sit out as a new wing to the building? I don't know how that attaches yet physically into the building. Or does it like add on to the 4th grade wing? And so then the discussion becomes, well, then you have 12 classrooms for 4th grade, and unfortunately, your 1st graders are the one that have the 7 classroom bubble, and how do you address that? So the better strategy may be 2 classrooms strategically placed around the building, which is increasing the cost, because you're in essence doing 3 building additions instead of 1. So, I mean, it could be $3 million, you know, total project, depending upon that final. I mean, talking this morning, we want a little bit of direction of how serious you are about it, and we can look at options to.
We're already a calendar year into our 5-year goal after we redrew the lines a year ago. You know, we knew in 5 years that a new elementary was probably gonna be on the wish list. So putting a few portables in to get us through to looking at that southwest side or maybe something else, maybe that could be the plan. But just at least having a game plan, being able to see the 2, I think would just give us a chance to make the best decision.
And our concerns are on capacity, on your interest in sinking, because you're sitting at 39 cents out of a possible 50 right
Right.
now. And I don't know how much you generate per penny here. I don't know, maybe you know off the top of your head.
No, not on the INS side.
Yeah. So I don't know how much money you could generate off your other 11 cents. And my guess is not enough to do a whole lot at this point in time. So the more that you can do to buy yourself a little time, so that hopefully over time you can buy down that INS and get yourself some more
Get some more
capacity,
space.
yeah, would be really important.
That would be an interesting number to say, and I know you ran some stuff and it's probably there, I just have to go back and look at it. In 4 years from now, what could we afford from a bond issue?
Yeah.
I have that information.
Yeah.
I can make sure that you all.
We've seen that, I've seen that one.
Yeah, just in 4 years, what could we do?
The other thing for you to always think about is when you have an INS expenditure, you're actually gonna have kind of a matching M&O expenditure, because when you add a campus on your INS, or you add capacity, you have to staff it. And when you staff it at the same campus, and this was another reason for the 2-story buildings, then you can go bigger and you can do it with basically your same staff without adding a lot of staff. You build a new building and you're gonna have an M&O component, a maintenance and operations component, because you have to replicate your administration, your food services, your custodial, et cetera. So again, if you can build on one side, use your current existing staffing, besides additional teachers, but your additional kiddos pay for those teachers, then that it gives you a pad in there, and so if you can do that, you can try it.
A little effort.
Can I summarize just real quick, because really we kind of identified 7 strategies to kind of tackle this elementary enrollment, and they all kind of interconnect. You know, you adjust one, it affects the others. And so it is the ability to close campuses for transfer. The first 2 are transfer policy. The ability to close campuses and just say, we're there, we can't take any new transfers here. The ability to be more conservative in your transfer for elementary transfer implementation, to do a really detailed study of current facilities and make sure, you know, that you know, we based our sections on our projections. Do those projections meet what's actually showing up to that school to attend? And do we have empty classrooms that we can be utilizing, either by moving staff or creating, you know, I still think staffing is less expensive than construction. So if we can meet some of these needs by adding staff, we buy some time and save some money over buildings. And then when you get below that line, those are the 3 that in the very near future, we're gonna have some solid and concrete answers on. And then you have to start making some decisions. Do you want to rearrange attendance boundaries? Do you want to go with additions at campuses? Do you want to go the portable route, which that's not something that we typically want to do, but I mean, some districts are forced into that hand at times. And then you look at your new schools, or replacing existing schools. So that's kind of where, as we've studied this and looked at it, that's kind of where it all falls. And whatever the, you know, to me, the decisions above that line are the ones that cost the least and may be the easiest to implement. Once you get below that line, you're talking about time and money and making decisions that may contradict what prior decisions that have been made as far as attendance boundaries and things like that.
So you had said, and I wanna make sure I have it, so, in your order was transfers first,
Mhm.
staffing, and then what was the third?
The two things on transfers, closing campuses to
Right.
new transfers, and then implementing more conservative transfer practices at our elementary level.
Really maxing-
Following policy,
yeah,
but just,
maxing your policy.
yeah, just not being as generous as I think is a good word to use as we've been in the past.
So transfers, staffing, and then,
And then once you get below that line, it's rezoning either portables or additions, and then lastly, building new schools and replacing existing schools.
Mike, that's a really good summary.
thank you.
Good job.
And Deanna said that y'all been talking about it, and whatever you said, she said today, since she's not here.
We have been, we have we're finishing up this semester data and the changes, and then we have a meeting next week to start crunching some numbers and seeing how much relief we can give just with transfer decisions.
Fantastic.
All right, so the last thing we'll have here is strategic planning for facilities and land.
Yeah, and this is we're talking about baby arms. I don't know if y'all, Lee Corso, if you're a football fan, there was a sign behind Lee Corso several years ago. Some kid had a Lee Corso on his baby arm. And every time I say baby, I think of Lee Corso. He didn't have a little arm, he's a little man. But anyway, this is your baby facilities plan. What I did is I took what you had given us at the last meeting, and I basically populated it in here, and I put it into a timeline, and I put whether it's in concept or whether it's in process up to this point in time. And you can take this wherever you want, but I will put it in every packet. So I need comments, suggestions, ideas that you have based upon looking at it, and we'll go from there.
Well, I looked through it, and, I mean, if we're gonna keep getting fed this each time, then there'll be more questions as we keep going along. And once we kind of start looking towards some of the deadlines, we can start, going there. But I thought it was very comprehensive, kind of what we've been looking at down the road.
I'm just going to go through the goals real quick. I mean, I'm trying to skim them real quick, just so it's in our head and you're right tight. Come back every time, and the more familiarized we get, the more we meet, then it starts populating itself. But anyway, completion of our capital improvements list, annual update of the capital improvements list, David, annual Templeton report and review, those are annually, consideration of how to handle growth, and that's that analysis. And I need to put student services over here too. Consideration of future land purchases, we talked about that a little bit today, that's an annual, and it should be an annual discussion. Possible repurposing of Leon Heights, expansion of Bex into Head Start area, that would depend on Leon Heights, what you do with that. Analysis of adding playground equipment, coordinate infrastructure needs, this is just coordination with other entities in town. ADA assessments, annual security assessments, career technology center update, swim center update, upgrades, bus rotation cycles, white fleet rotation cycles, establish long-range plan for technology infrastructure, it's a huge one for us right now. Conduct technology rotation cycles, determine platform for the district, that's technology. Determine timeline for future bonds, use of tear down of old gym behind a men building. Parking analysis, that's again related to that gym. Plan to address parking needs, and that would be everywhere across the district. Special education, old and men building, conduct analysis of equitable sports facilities and equipment.
So when you say time frame, and like on, the very first one that I saw was the very first one, once you get past annual, was the possibility of repurposing Leon Heights. I mean, that's a huge one. It's like the steeplechase, you run around and there's that big thing you gotta jump over. That's right there. So when you say fall of 2020, is that when we'll start visiting?
I just put in dates.
Okay.
I don't necessarily recommend those dates
Yeah.
beside those first two, because those are pretty evident.
Yeah, right.
But, the only thing that I see when people do strategic plans is they cram everything into the first year, and then it's just kind of what's left over, and, pace yourself is the only thing I can say. So
Yeah.
when we really get everything in here, and that's our first step, is every time we meet, or if you have ideas outside, you send them, and I will put them in here. It doesn't matter whether people agree with them or not at this point in time, we need to capture ideas. And then once those are in there, then you can assign your timelines to them. And they'll be with your new superintendent, and that's a great project between a board and an administration team. And I would suggest when you have a board and you've worked through strategic planning, you do have your administration team there, and you put your timelines in of what you can manage within that year, and then within the second year or the third year. Jennifer's got to be part of that because it's gonna step off based upon what your capacities are.
Right.
So she will be a great asset in that. But right now, we're capturing ideas.
And then we had talked about the idea of doing that on that board retreat, whatever you called it, because it is an open meeting, you do have to deal with all that, but nobody's gonna wanna show up for that,
Yeah.
as far as the public
Right.
goes.
Yeah, Suzanne and Jeff and I met, I guess, on Monday, and we talked about, I would recommend to you all that you do a board retreat, and I think you'll enjoy it so much. I know in Temple, they eventually went where they did 3 a year. And what they did is they did long-range planning. That was generally their whole purpose. Suzanne and Jeff approved that, so for the May one, you're going to hear from Jennifer. She's gonna work with you on your budget process, so instead of doing a lot of meetings throughout the year, or attached to a board meeting where you've got 10,000 things on your agenda, you're gonna hear just budget, and you're gonna be able to talk with Jennifer back and forth, so I think that'll be great. That'd be wonderful.
Yes, they're trying to cram it into a meeting.
Yeah, and then she'll probably do another one with you in July, late July or early August. And then the other part of that meeting in May would be your strategic planning, and for a lot of your board members, this will be the first time they really get to chew on it. This template now is on a Google shared document with all the different departments, and so they're all working on strategic plans within their departments. And again, with you and your new superintendent and your administration, then you can take this will be bones, and then you can start pulling at your bones.
All right, so we ready to go with the Ag Barn?
Yeah, what is our life left on our football field?
Oh, on the turf?
Left?
Yeah, you said one time in the last meeting, like 3 years?
3 to 5 conservatively,
It's already kinda hardening up a little bit.
yeah.
That was just one of the things that was brought up in our meetings was in the, not as much with us, but something that has to be on the radar when we're doing these is, those things that are coming up, you gotta put them on there, cause it's not a surprise item. You've got X amount of years with that field, and then how much is it?
Well, and you're fixing to add 3 more, because you're gonna have a baseball, softball, and football field at the new school, all on the same rotation schedule, basically, since they're all being installed at the
But the
same
football
time.
field's gonna be grass.
No, it'll be turf. There's be 2 grass practice fields,
Oh, I thought the new football field was grass.
So-
And
yeah.
y'all wait till it's late in the process to lay those, right? Cause the clock
Yeah.
starts the minute you put them down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, the clock starts when you sign substantial completion, that's
Yeah.
your warranty, but yes.
On the current field,
Good answer.
ballpark 3 to 7,
Okay.
realistically, probably 3 to 5.
And then replacement's gonna be,
A fraction of the cost of what it was whenever we did it before.
We were just talking, another district, and they've got the $400,000 to $450,000 is the cost of the.
well, that one cost a fortune though, because when y'all got into it, this was before my time.
3.1.
What's underneath it
Yeah,
costs.
so
all
you're
the
talking
problems.
about a sixth of the cost,
Yeah.
or a seventh of the cost for replacement over what the installation.
So really on that, the whole deal's just gonna be, when Lake Belton comes online, changing out an end zone, the emblem in the middle, the cost of that versus just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a potentially a $50,000 or so cost to rebrand versus a $400,000 cost to replace the whole thing, so.
And if we're still 3 to 5 away,
And I added on to what you were talking too, that, and about the turf replacement.
Right.
And I also added about at some point in time, you'll probably want to expand your Lake Belton High School football field too, because I think you just have stands on one side. So I added that on here too, because that would be part of the long range plan.
awesome. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Everybody know where to go?
So see some gigs or whatever.